Everyone knows dragons are one of the strongest strategies in the game right now, but very few players know how to use them correctly. Today, we're going to analyze 2 professional attacks and break down the hidden concepts that make this strategy so consistent. These are details that most players never notice, but once you do, your dragon attacks become dramatically stronger. Today we're going to break down 2 professional attacks using dragons together with dragon riders, one of the strongest strategies in the game right now, especially after the most recent balance changes. This strategy works both in esports and in the Legend League. It's a relatively simple composition, but it takes full advantage of one key weakness of dragons. They're extremely vulnerable to air defenses. That's why this combinations work so well. Let's start with the first attack, executed by Seleno from Psycho Esports against Carry Sports during the World Championship qualifiers. Here's the base layout. It's using the Logger together with the Duke, while the other heroes are positioned a little farther away. Notice how the Air Sweeper is covering the side of the base much more than the center. This type of Air Sweeper placement is mainly designed to defend against Duke Walks, since Duke Walk is one of the strongest approaches in this type of competition. However, while the Air Sweeper is positioned to stop Duke Walks from the sides, it doesn't protect against a dragon entry through the Town Hall. That's an extremely important detail. The base also has a lava launcher, which naturally makes it more vulnerable to air attacks. But there's another key factor that makes this strategy so effective. Whenever the Duke can travel with the rocket backpack and remove air defenses along his path, you get incredible value. That's exactly what happens on this base. By moving from the bottom to the top, the Duke eliminates 2 air defenses, which is massive. The same principle applies to the Queen. With the Giant Arrow, she can hit 2 air defenses, since Giant Arrow goes in a straight line. Ideally, though, the Queen isn't just removing air defenses. She's also creating the funnel for the dragons. That's what makes this combination so powerful. The Duke removes air defenses while creating one side of the funnel, and the Queen removes air defenses while creating the other side. This strategy also uses 2 overgrowth spells, which are extremely valuable during the final stages of the attack. They protect the dragons from high DPS defenses, especially the Fire Spitter, which deals devastating splash damage. The attack starts with the Duke moving from the bottom to the top, taking out both air defenses. But the important part isn't just the air defenses. The Duke also creates the upper funnel, making it much easier for the dragons to fly directly into the Town Hall compartment. The Queen does exactly the same thing on the left side. She finishes off another air defense while creating the opposite funnel. In this attack, Seleno actually missed the final air defense with the Giant Arrow, but that was because he prioritized hitting the Poison Spell Tower in the core instead. Even without taking down every air defense, the hero value is incredible. Together, they clear both sides of the base and prepare a perfect path for the dragons through the middle. The purpose of these 2 heroes isn't just to create the funnel. Their main job is to tank the side defenses and make the dragon's path through the core as safe as possible. Whenever you're planning a dragon attack, always ask yourself one question. Once the dragons reach the core, what defenses are actually shooting at them? As I always explain on my channel, the defenses in the core are what I call frontal damage. They're usually not the biggest concern because that's exactly where your dragons are flying. As they move through the core, they'll naturally destroy those defenses one by one. The real threat comes from the defenses on the sides of the base. Those are what I call side damage. The dragons aren't supposed to clear the sides. Ideally, you want almost your entire army pushing through the core, which means very few dragons will ever move out toward the edges. As a result, those side defenses stay alive for a long time while continuously firing into your main group of dragons. That's why side damage is so dangerous. A single side defense may not seem like a huge problem, but because it stays alive for such a long time, it keeps dealing damage throughout the entire attack. Over time, that damage adds up and can become enormous. So whenever you're planning a dragon attack, don't just look at the defenses in the core. Pay even closer attention to the defenses on the sides that can continuously fire into the center, because those are often the biggest threat to your army. Once the dragons reach the middle, the only significant side damage comes from the scatter shots. Scatter shots don't deal extremely high single target damage, so the dragons don't suffer nearly as much as they would against air defenses, monoliths, or other high DPS defenses. Always pay attention to how much side damage can reach the dragons once they're flying through the core. If that damage comes from air defenses, the monolith, X-bows, or the multi-archer tower, the attack becomes much more difficult. That's another reason why the queen starts on the left instead of the top side. On the queen's side, there's a multi-archer tower. It's extremely important for the queen to remove that defense because it provides dangerous side damage into the core, where the dragons will be flying. So the queen must survive long enough to eliminate that threat before the dragons arrive. Another interesting detail is the use of the healer puppet. This is mostly an esports optimization. In esports, epic equipment is capped 6 levels lower than other modes. That means the action figure isn't level 27, it's only level 21. Losing 6 levels significantly reduces its strength. Because of that, the healer puppet becomes much more competitive with the action figure in esports. If you're playing in Legend League, I still recommend using the action figure. However, there's something you should keep in mind. The giant can sometimes trigger and pull the ground portion of the clan castle. Notice that the queen is deployed on the left side because there's a lower chance of activating the ground clan castle troops there, such as ice golems or even an ice hound. At the same time, the queen removes the multi-archer tower, eliminating an important source of side damage into the core. On the top side, there's a ricochet cannon. Unlike the multi-archer tower, it doesn't create dangerous side damage against the dragons once they enter the center of the base. That's exactly why starting the queen on the left side is the better decision in this attack. The dragons are now entering exactly where they need to, and from this point on, it's all about spell management. He drops the first rage spell and then uses the Eternal Tome to completely negate the damage as the army pushes into the core. He uses the first overgrowth spell to lock down both fire spitters. These defenses are one of the biggest threats to this strategy because they deal extremely high splash damage, which can melt dragons very quickly. At this point, the queen is supposed to remove the side, and this is where he makes a mistake. He loses the queen because he delays the totem, so she isn't able to finish off both the enemy queen and the multi-archer tower. Even with that mistake, though, the strategy is so powerful that he's still able to finish the base. Now, an excellent use of the overgrowth spell. He catches the fire spitter that's hitting the dragons while the second remains active for the core push to neutralize. He activates the minion prince's ability, and from there the cleanup is straightforward. The ending becomes a little more difficult because he lost the queen side of the funnel, but the attack still finishes successfully. The biggest reason it works is the outstanding planning at the beginning of the attack. By using the Duke and the Queen to eliminate multiple air defenses while creating both sides of the funnel, he attacked through an angle where the air sweeper had almost no impact. This is easily one of the strongest dragon variations you can play right now. Now let's move on to another base. The overall concept is very similar, but this time he doesn't use the rocket backpack to remove the air defenses. Instead, he relies on a queen walk. Take a look at this layout. Once again, we have a base where a dragon entry through the town hall doesn't get pushed back by the air sweeper. That's one of the first things you should always check when analyzing a TH18 base for a dragon attack. A town hall entry is extremely valuable because your dragons can quickly remove the defending guardian, and in this case, they can do it and even neutralize an early rage spell tower. This base also has another important characteristic. There are 2 air defenses positioned close enough that the queen can remove them very efficiently. If you're familiar with queen walks, you already know why this works. The air defense is positioned close enough to the wall that the queen can target it without entering the compartment. If it were 1 tile farther back, she would have to break into the compartment first. Keeping the queen outside the wall is a huge advantage. If she enters the compartment too early, she can easily walk deeper into the base and start taking heavy damage from the long shot and other central defenses. By staying outside, she clears exactly what she needs while remaining much safer. The plan here is simple. The queen walks down the side, removes both air defenses, breaks the wall only when necessary to reach the monolith. It's a very smart approach. On this particular base, the rocket backpack doesn't create nearly as much value as it did in the previous attack. While the Duke could still remove some air defenses, he wouldn't create a clean funnel for the dragons. The dragon entry has to come either through the town hall or through the revenge tower side, where the air sweeper won't interfere. The Duke simply doesn't create the right path for the dragons on this layout. Instead, the queen walk takes full advantage of those exposed air defenses and clears almost the entire side of the base. Now watch how the funnel is created. He starts the queen walk with the angry jelly and an ice golem, allowing the queen to clean the entire side very safely. Notice that the lava launcher isn't targeting the queen from this angle. As a result, she's only dealing with frontal damage instead of heavy side damage, which makes the walk much easier. She does take a little bit of damage from the Expo, but nothing she can't handle. He waits patiently, drops a skeleton spell to distract the monolith, and then opens the wall on the lower side. Overall, it's a very straightforward queen walk that secures an incredible amount of value. He even removes the enemy king, which is another important detail because the king can waste a huge amount of time for dragons due to his massive health. After removing the monolith, the queen is recalled toward the top side, where she continues doing exactly the same thing, removing another pair of air defenses while extending the funnel. Then he deploys the air wagon on the outside and sends the dragon straight through the middle. Here's another very important concept. He doesn't wait for the queen to finish removing the air defense before deploying the dragons. There's a very specific timing here. At the moment the dragons are deployed, that air defense isn't threatening them yet. The dragons still have to clear several buildings before they reach its range. Meanwhile, the queen is already about to remove it. Ideally, the queen should destroy the air defense at the exact moment it would have started shooting the dragons. Because the queen reaches it so quickly, there's no reason to delay the dragon deployment. This is a mistake many players make. They wait for one phase of the attack to finish before starting the next. You only do that if the first phase directly affects the success of the other. Here it doesn't. By the time the air defense becomes relevant, the queen has already taken it down. Running both entries simultaneously is actually more efficient because the defenses become split. For example, if an X-bow is targeting the dragons, it's not shooting the queen, and vice versa. There's another subtle detail here. Why is the air wagon placed on the left side? It's not just about funneling. The queen has already created the funnel, so the dragons were never going to drift downward. The air wagon's real job is to reduce the width of the dragon deployment. That's extremely important because you don't want your dragons entering across a very wide front. If they spread out too much, your Grand Warden won't be able to protect all of them with the Eternal Tome and the Healing Tome. Keeping the army compact allows you to get maximum value from both abilities. That's why the queen clears both sides, while the air wagon narrows the remaining entry point. With dragons in particular, you almost always want a tighter entry instead of spreading across the entire side of the base. You can already see how compact the formation is. Almost every dragon remains inside the Grand Warden's abilities, dramatically increasing the strength of the push. Once again, he uses an overgrowth spell in the core to shut down the most dangerous defenses, while the queen continues extending the funnel on the right side. He also uses the Dark Crown on the minion prince. This is another adjustment that's especially valuable in esports. Since epic equipment is capped at lower levels in tournament play, the Meteor Staff isn't nearly as powerful as it is on the other modifiers. At level 21, the Dark Crown becomes much more competitive because it provides better survivability for the minion prince, while the dragons deal the majority of the damage. Finally, he deploys the Duke for cleanup. He still has the Duke's ability available, making the final cleanup extremely safe, and he closes out another 3-star attack. Overall, this was another outstanding dragon attack by Celino. Just like in the previous replay, the entire strategy revolves around removing as many air defenses as possible during the hero phase, while simultaneously building a clean funnel for the dragons. Depending on the base, you can achieve that with a rocket backpack or with a queen walk. The goal is always the same: reduce the width of the dragon entry so the army stays compact and the Grand Warden's abilities cover as many dragons as possible. And whenever possible, choose an entry angle where the air sweeper isn't pushing your dragons away. If you consistently apply these concepts, dragons become one of the easiest and most reliable strategies for scoring 3 stars. If you learned something from this video and want to support the channel,